Stay tuned for Wrestling with Computers, the show that explains technology. So go turn on your computer, get a piece of paper and a pen, because we're off to the world of technology, and you're going to want to take notes. Welcome to Wrestling with Computers. Today's special guest, Keven Harris, is here from NextVault, where we're going to discuss offsite backup and the importance of backing up all your data. Thanks for coming and welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Just a couple statistics out there that are just pretty amazing about the data that's out there. I tell all my clients all the time that hardware is not really important. It's the data that's important.
Right.
And some of the statistics out there about hard drive crashes occur every 15 seconds. And 32% of the data loss is caused by human error, while 44% is caused by mechanical failures. And 1 in 5 computers suffer a fatal hard drive crash during their lifetime. 40% of small and medium-sized businesses don't back up their data at all, which is unbelievable.
Unreal.
It is. And 40 to 50% of all backups are not fully recoverable. And up to 60% of backups fail in general. Nearly 3 out of 5 personal computers have a loss in their lifetime. And 37% of survey respondents admitted to backing up their files less than once a month. And U.S. businesses lose over $12 billion a year because of data loss. With all that statistics out there, it's amazing to me how many people don't really understand how important backup is.
Yeah, you're right, Wrestling. It surprises me with as many of those statistics that prove that data loss is such a major problem out there that people aren't doing the basic steps to protect it. It's not a matter of, it won't happen to me, it will happen to you, and likely more than not, it's already happened to you. You've probably already lost data, you just haven't figured it out yet.
Right. And it's with that, I talk to my clients all the time, and they're like, well, if I lost data, what would why would that be bad? I don't understand why, if I lost my computer, and when I turn to the secretaries or the admins and I say, if your computer went down today, how much would you lose?
Sure.
And they're the people who are aghast at that and say, I would lose. And some of the statistics are saying that it would take something like 40 to 50,000 hours to replace 400 megabytes worth of data.
Keying it all back in and trying to assemble it all and however it was used, absolutely. The expense of loss is overwhelming, and it's far greater than taking the basic steps of just protecting it. Especially today with technology and capabilities and service offerings out there, the cost is minimal to protect it versus the cost to reproduce it.
Yeah, and so some of the in the old days, what we'd do is we'd have tape backups and we would have CDs. I had one client who told me that what she did for backup is she went around and made sure everybody burned a CD every day. Mm-hmm. And I basically told her, well, you're the backup. The day you don't come in is the day the lightning strikes and you lose everything.
Right, exactly. And where did those CDs end up? Most of the time, probably on the table next to them or in the drawer in the desk right in the building.
Exactly. One of my best clients, Greg Brenner, had he's got a sign shop in Plymouth, and it burned to the ground.
Ooh.
And fortunately, we were able to get in there and turn the computers off before the water hit them.
Oh.
So we were able to get, but he now has an offsite backup. So if you could talk a little bit about, offsite backup, why it's important, and basically what it is, and a little bit about, how Vault USA, NextVault takes care of data like that.
Sure. Well, offsite backup is relatively simple. It leverages computing power today using software and your internet connection to take a copy of your data and get it out of harm's way, which is usually in front of the user or where they work, and store it in a secure data center or two for recovery purposes. It also provides for some generational recovery, so you have historical versioning to recover from. And some of the challenges and people face trying to back up themselves, either with a USB drive or a CD, is they typically just make a copy and they overwrite whatever data is on there. So if all of a sudden they realize, oh my goodness, I lost a file 5 days ago, or I wish I had that version from 3 days back, they don't have that ability. With offsite backup and versioning capabilities, you can recover historical copies back to what you need.
Yeah, I've had a couple clients that deleted or changed something and saved the changes and said, oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
And call me up, and the people that I do have on offsite backup, I go in and get that historical data from 3 backups ago,
right.
which is extremely important. We had a client who had a virus go through a server, and we had to go back to historical data to 3 weeks before. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of that.
Right.
That you really want to make sure that you have some sort of historical data.
Right.
So basically, one of the things that took me a long time as a technician, a computer technician, to get to where I really trusted that offsite backup, because I had a long time before I could say, all right, I'm trusting my ISP to back up that computer. And once it leaves that computer, it's going to La La Land. Can you talk a little bit about the security and how far we've come with that?
Sure. There's a variety of companies out there that provide online, offsite, cloud backup, whatever name they present it to you. The key things around the security are you want to make sure there's encryption involved, and you want to make sure that you're assigning the encryption key. So it's not a common key, because if you're being assigned the key from the service provider, they technically have access to your data. It's your data. It should be private to you and recoverable by you only. So using encryption. Communications today, most all of them have SSL or some type of line level encryption. So you want to make sure that the data is encrypted as it's being backed up before it leaves your computer. It's encrypted while it's in flight to get to the data center where it's going to be stored, and it's encrypted at rest while it's at the data center. Now, the key to that security, of course, is that you keep that encryption key, because as we all know, when we need to get the data back, we need to actually supply the key to decrypt it, and that's always a challenge for a lot of folks. They create a password and they don't ever think about it again, and then they realize they need it to get the data back and they forget it. So that's a major point of it. The other thing is that your data is protected in a data center that is generally well guarded, cameras, redundant air conditioning, staff. So it's far more secure than perhaps putting your data on some type of medium and either mailing it or storing it in another physical building. So those are some things around the security and availability aspects of it. So
basically, go through, if you could, what happens when you have a total hardware failure in a computer, and someone like me calls up and says, all right, we've had a hardware failure. Basically, how do we get that data back? What's the process, and how the security and the backup recovery works?
Sure. Well, providing that you've had good backups, and it is part responsibility of the service provider and part responsibility of the customer, depending on the agreement that you have in place to monitor those backups for activity. The majority of the service providers out there provide the technology, the infrastructure, and the solution, but don't babysit it unless you've taken that extra step and actually have contracted that type of service with them. So you want to make sure that your data is backed up, and that you're probably backing up all of the data. That's the key to recovery, is making sure you're backing up all the data. Your traditional PC backup likely is getting a new PC that either comes pre-installed with Windows, or maybe it's a service that you provide, and reinstall the operating system and any applications, and then you install the online backup application. provide the credentials to the vault where the data is stored, and start to request a recovery. Upon that recovery, you're going to be asked to provide the encryption key that we talked about earlier, and the data starts to come back down over the internet. For most people who have single PCs or laptops, that'll take a couple hours depending on your broadband connection or where the data is being recovered. In larger businesses, advanced services such as disk copies can be cut and the data remains encrypted on the disk and then is couriered or overnighted to the location for a quicker copy. When it gets in the facility, it can run at network speeds.
So basically, you can be up within a couple hours on a basic computer.
Sure.
From having a complete hardware failure.
Sure. And the reality to that is people worry about, well, what happens if my whole hard drive goes away? And a couple hours to some people may like, oh my gosh, that sounds great, and other folks, oh my gosh, that sounds like it takes forever.
Right.
But the reality is people are deleting files all of the time, and to get a file back, it's a few mouse clicks, and you have the file back in 10 seconds.
Right.
And that beats any type of medium that you'd be storing it on and trying to recover from.
So what are you seeing as like the trend of are more people going to online backup? Is it becoming more widespread use? Is the industry as a whole seeing that as the value that it is?
Oh, sure. When I started doing this in 1998, it was new. I mean, back in those days, AOL was the premium ISP, and if you had a T1 in your office building, you had blazing internet speed. So fast forward to where we are today, and it's a well-accepted practice. There are thousands of companies that provide this service at all different types of levels, all different focuses and verticals. So it's a natural movement for people to want to protect that data and utilize one of these services versus, the old zip drives or CDs, as you had. I'm going back a little ways. Or some of the other
8-track.
Yeah, exactly. Medium. But we're also seeing some more elaborate wants and desires, like your iPad here. A solution where you have the ability to back up the data off of your laptop, but then actually connect to the vault with your iPad and at least view or interact with your data. So those types of advancements are coming out as well. But major acceptance. It's a trusted practice. It's just a matter of a lot of different providers out there with a lot of different options, offerings, and price points, and finding the one that best fits you.
Can you talk a little bit about the private cloud as opposed to the public cloud?
Sure.
There's a big difference between who you're going to go with.
Well, yeah, and the cloud has gotten cloudy.
Yeah.
I'll give credit to the likes of Amazon, who really came out with the name cloud and utility computing and pay for what you use, and that makes a lot of sense. But Amazon, when they do something well, it creates buzz, and we could say that we've been running in the cloud for a very long time already by hosting applications. You had hosted service providers and ASPs and MSPs, and the acronyms go on and on. The real major difference that, from my standpoint, is a public cloud is a larger infrastructure that a service provider company may leverage a portion of it as a customer of that cloud provider. So, for example, a company may leverage Amazon's cloud and use it for computing and storage, and then build an application on top of it and sell it. Versus our model, which is a private cloud, where we own all of our own infrastructure and run all of it ourselves. And there's some differences in opinion, but we can certainly look at and say a private cloud where it's self-contained by the service provider can offer some additional benefits, such as direct access and management and security and comfort for some people to say, oh, I can actually go and see where my data is, versus the public cloud. The service providers really, at the point of just living off of Amazon or EMC or whoever the cloud provider is for their business to operate and succeed.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I've always been really leery of, especially with the cloud, is all right. You can secure your personal computer. You're saying that you're securing that cloud. There's a huge tube in between that personal computer and that tube that there's no way of securing. It's a public. It's like being on a telephone line that's a community telephone.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's broadcasting it. So basically, what the companies out there that are having to decide how to back up their company, a big company with 50 computers and massive amount of data. How does a company like yours provide for that? Some of the different infrastructures and how it's implemented. Mm-hmm. Can you go into as opposed to an individual who's backing up one computer as a company that's backing up massive amount of data?
Sure. There's certainly different approaches depending on the size of the company, the size of the data, the number of servers, and where they're located or dispersed. A company that has a very large amount of data in a concentrated data center, we might take the approach of implementing a on-site appliance model that creates a local copy, and that will give some comfort to the customer of speed of backups and speed of recovery by having a lot or all of their data in a backup form on site, and then have that data replicated offsite. In a distributed environment, say a government office that has a presence in every state. So obviously smaller amounts of data in each unique place, but as a whole could be a large amount of data. We'd approach that differently and just utilize agents and have that back up either to our vaults directly, or back up to a centralized appliance, maybe where whoever's administering the IT for those offices, so that they have some direct access to the bulk data and then replicate to us. So it's a different approach each time, and we take a consultative view to it to really deliver to the needs that they have.
And it does, if you look at different companies, you really have to look at their needs, and they do vary from company to company. So if you could just talk a little more about the data and how much it's protected, and how there's a little bit more about the advantages to offsite backup, the disadvantages, just so people know, basically offsite data backup, where it's going, what are the advantages of having it offsite as opposed to onsite?
Sure. Well, one of the major advantages is it's automated. A little piece of software does the work for you. You have to tell it what to back up, when, how long to keep it. But once you've done that, as long as it generally has an internet connection, it will do it for you. You don't have to worry about, making sure that you stay another 10 minutes and copy media. It just happens. If some of them auto detect and actually will back up whenever it sees an internet connection.